G'day Spurs fans, Paul Hotspur hippie here, the only psychedelic soccer show on the internet. Off out for a walk, because even though I'm sick, a man's got to eat. I'm feeling a bit better anyway. Anyway, I saw this thing on Talk Sport where a guy from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust went on there and said, I'd like to invite Ange Postecoglou and have a sit down to talk about the rivalry that exists between Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur. And look, I haven't really paid too much attention to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, which is almost an anagram of shit, unfortunately. I'm sure they do good things. I know some fans have problems with them. You know, they're kind of not relevant to myself. But I thought this guy's tone was so unbelievably patronising and crazy. And I'm thinking, who's he representing? Who asked him to do this? Is this something he's just taken off his own bat? He doesn't represent me. So I thought I'd just mention a little bit to give you an insight on rivalries that Ange has been involved with that I know about. I don't know the full details. You can go and look these up yourself to fill in the blanks. I'm just talking off the top of my head. I don't promise any accuracy, but the gist is right, okay? And it might help you guys out there understand a bit where Ange is coming from as well. Because the rivalries he's been through are far more, I would say, severe than the Tottenham Arsenal one. Now I'm not trying to diminish the Tottenham Arsenal one at all. You know, don't get me wrong. We hate each other, but it's basically a sporting rivalry. And some of these other rivalries have much deeper roots. So we'll start off. It's very windy. I hope my microphone's all right on this. So we'll start off with the National Soccer League in Australia. Now, I'm not making comments here about standard of football, so please put your Farmers League thoughts to one side for a second. I'm talking about intensity. So the National Soccer League, which existed up in Australia up until 2003, I think, when it was all sanitised and whitewashed and made really boring. The clubs in that largely are based around immigrants and their families' countries of origin. Soccer's not a hugely popular professional sport in Australia. Not by what I would call white Australia, if you know what I mean, to be broad, or Anglo-Australia. You know, people like me, I guess, my descendants, you know. And so Ange played for a Greek-based team. Incredible, and these teams were based from all sorts of countries like Macedonia, Italy, then you had Croatia, Serbia, places like this. So already you're talking about rivalries that are not just split by a toss of the coin, they're divided by blood. You know, it would be extremely rare, I think, to have a family that had some Melbourne Hellas supporters and some from a Macedonian team. And they were incredibly tense, incredibly intense. Things used to get out of control occasionally. It could be risky at times going to the games, I guess. I mean, I didn't mind it, but I didn't really have skin in the game being English, you know. Given the fact, also, especially the fact at the time of Yugoslav war, where the Yugoslavia broke up after Tito into several separate countries that went to war with each other for years and years and years. You had clubs down here that sometimes extended it over here, if you know what I mean. You know, passions were very high. Passions were very high. Then we move on to the rivalry between Glasgow Celtic and Glasgow Rangers. Again, put your Farmers League hats to one side, folks, because Celtic was formed by Irish immigrants, mainly Catholics, and there was incredible tension, violence between them and Glasgow Rangers, the more British Protestant club. Again, you're talking about splits of down family lines and friends lines often as well, and there'll be often violence at these games. Someone died in 1971, you know, I mean, you're talking about this severe, you know. I'm not trying to glorify these rivalries, I'm just trying to kind of tell you how it is. So Ange fully understands what a rivalry is, you know, Mr. Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. He doesn't need some patronising Burke like you to sit down and explain it to him, because after all, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the Tottenham Hotspur Arsenal rivalry is that you do get families with either support. You do get friends with either support. There's no real clear drawn ethnic or class lines. You know what I mean? It's a toss of the coin. Whereas these other rivalries aren't. They're deep-seated. Deep-seated. And less, what's the word I'm looking for? They're more like oil and water. Whereas Tottenham Arsenal is more like an emulsion. You know what I mean? So if you to sit there and speak on behalf of us all and say that you want to sit down and talk to Ange Postecoglou about rivalries, man, what are you going to say? After he's been through leagues where, you know, he's had rivals with Macedonian clubs, biff, 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 Glasgow Celtic, Glasgow Rangers, oh my lord, you know? You're going to sit there and tell him, well, Ange, what you don't understand is that in 1913, Plumstead Wanderers came up to our manor. Okay. And then, in 1919, they stopped us from getting in Division 1 with probably a load of brown paper bags. Right, then what happened? When was the war? Are they different religions? Different no, well, and that bad blood has continued to this day. Oh, right. Now again, I'm not trying to, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to diminish the rivalry, because for me, the Tottenham Arsenal rivalry is great, because it's a good, hard, sporting rivalry, you know, where friends are split by what teams they support, but can still be friends, you know. It's almost like a pure, in some way, not pure, that's the wrong word. I don't know what word I'm looking for. It's kind of almost like rivalry at its finest. I'm trying to paint a picture here. It's a rivalry of choice, maybe. And I think that's what makes it great. And we do hate each other, but we also have brothers and sisters, uncles, friends on either side. It's not as intense a dangerous, deeply entrenched rivalry when you're talking about things like war and terrorism, you know? So maybe Martin, I think his name is Martin, maybe you sit down and Ange and let him tell you a thing or two about rivalry, because despite coming through all that, Ange still wants to win every game. And if you don't, maybe you could learn something, because Ange ain't changing. But if you listen to Ange, maybe you will. Peace and love, man, and come you Spurs.